What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another Balatro tier list. Today we are doing the Jokers once more, but we are finally doing them for gold stakes exclusively. I recently came out with my Balatro deck tier list for gold stakes, and now that I finally am done with C++, we've had a ton of gold stakes runs these past couple months. I finally feel comfortable doing a Joker tier list for gold stakes. When we started this venture about 2-3 months ago, I would say my gold stake win rate was anywhere between like 35-45%. We have upped that to much closer to 70 or 80% of my runs I could usually win on gold stake, and I feel a lot more comfortable speaking to the Jokers and placing them on a tier list. And again, just to emphasize the rules of this tier list, it is gold stake exclusively. That is how we're going to be judging these 150 Jokers, how useful they are at the gold stake level in Balatro, generally speaking, for all the decks. Without further ado, let's jump into it. So Jimbo Joker plus 4 Molt, very cheap, only $2. Still going to go in the D tier for me. I know a lot of people speak to it as like, oh, this is great for $2 to get 4 Molt early. I see it, I get it, but if it does not pop up in that first Buffoon pack or maybe the first 2 shop windows, it's a waste of a Joker spot for you in the shop. 95% of the time you're going to see it. So for me, for that reason, you put in the D tier list. Maybe that gives you a little bit of insight of how I'm approaching this. It's how often, how useful these Jokers are. How often am I going to be picking these up? Now, of course, a lot of these comments you tend to pick up only in the early game, and when they show up later, you just ignore them. But specifically with Jimbo Joker, it is only very early that you're really going to grab them and utilize that plus 4 Molt. Maybe I need to utilize it more, but generally speaking, I just think it's slightly below average. And that's how I feel about all of the suit Jokers that give plus 3 Molt. You got your Greedy, your Lusty, Wrathful, and Gluttonous. They can be useful really for that first ante, maybe the first 2 antes, but outside of that, you're not going to be using them a whole bunch. And you also run into those disabled suits in the boss blinds in early antes quite often, just due to when certain boss blinds can show up, it lends itself to seeing those suit debuffs a little bit more, and it just makes these a little bit more irritating because maybe you're using Lustful, for example, and then all of a sudden the hearts get debuffed, Ante 1 or Ante 2, and this Joker is basically useless to you. So again, below average, really only useful for the first couple of antes, and even then, I'm very often not wanting to lean into it. I don't want to have to force myself into a flush build. It's just not great in my opinion. Now, Jolly Joker, this is where I'm going to change my tune. I actually think Jolly is pretty average common Joker. Pair builds are very, very popular in gold stakes, but 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind is something I'm often trying to build to. Full houses maybe. And Jolly Joker, getting that 8 Molt for simply having a pair is fantastic, and it actually can stay up on your board for quite a while. Again, especially in a pair build, as you're building up those Mercury Planet cards, getting that hand level up, that plus 8 Molt actually does quite a bit. So for me, this is our first average common Joker for gold stake when it comes to how useful it can be. Zany Joker plus 12 Molt for 3 of a kind. This goes back into the D tier, and it's simply because 3 of a kind is hard to play. Yes, an extra 4 Molt is nice, but I much rather have Jolly Joker at plus 8 over having to force myself to play 3 of a kind at plus 12. It is much harder to get 3 of the same card, and especially in when I'm recording this video, you still have -1 discard at blue stakes, something that Local Thunk is looking at maybe changing in a future update. But for now, when you're looking at gold stakes, with only 2 discards, it is not easy to find 3 of a kinds. It's not easy to find full houses. So therefore, you're really adding Zany Joker just to get a little bit of extra Molt to get you over the hump of the early game. Well, now I still have to find a 3 of a kind, which oftentimes can be the death of you. Mad Joker, 2 pairs a little bit more reasonable. I'll put this in the C tier. Definitely prefer Jolly. I mean, I'm going to put Jolly in B tier. Little retroactive activism, because I feel like Mad Joker's above Zany, below Jolly, and this is how I'm going to pair it. Two pair, you can find often enough. The plus 10 Molt is pretty solid. So, all in all, Mad Joker, I think, is one of those that I'm okay with. Crazy Joker plus 12 Molt. If played hand contains a straight, this one's average for me. Often, if you're playing straights, really the key part you're going to be missing is Molt, because straights, they level so heavily on the chip side of things. So, Crazy Joker actually isn't that bad if you're going to go for straights. I just think, similar to Zany, it's hard to get a straight, and this is really just trying to get you over the hump of the early game. But I think Crazy Joker has a little bit more of a long-lasting effect than Zany Joker, i.e. I can carry it a little bit longer in the game and have it matter, because once again, the chips of the straight build are scaling so well that this plus 12 Molt does a lot more. It takes you a lot further, in my opinion. Droll Joker plus 10 Molt for a flush. Again, I just don't find myself playing flushes. I feel like the logic is there to put it in the C category. I would say my usage of it is much closer to these in the D category. But the plus 10 Molt for a flush, how often you can get a flush, I think more lines in the C category. So this is a do as they say, not as I do type of thing, where I don't feel like I pick up Droll enough, but I do think, it does a job similar to Mad Joker. I just find myself playing straights, two pairs, or pairs a lot more than I would play flushes, but you got to win. And this is where maybe for me, the last 20% to really start streaking in gold stakes, similar to a Dr. Spectre or Espa V, will come, is when I learn, how to assure my survival in the early antes, because, I'll streak 3 gold stake wins in a row, 4, 5, and what's happening is the one I lose, I'm losing right in ante 1, and maybe I need to prioritize survivability, with something like a Droll Joker a little bit more. All right, moving on, Slide Joker, plus 50 chips for playing a pair. In my book, that's pretty good. That's going to go right next to Jolly. Again, it's just this little extra boost. When you're playing pairs, often you're missing the chip aspect. So similar how Crazy Joker is helping you with the Molt aspect of the straights, Sly is helping you with the chip aspect of playing pairs. I think it's a fantastic card. I'd even put it maybe above Jolly. Wily Joker, 100 chips for playing 3 of a kind. It's going in the D category for the same exact reason as Zany Joker. It's too hard to play 3 of a kind, in my opinion, on gold stakes for it to be reliable. Yes, plus 100 chips is a lot, but honestly, I probably don't need these Jokers if I'm playing 3 of a kind. Clever Joker, plus 80 for a 2-pair. This one's actually going in D, because if I'm playing 2 pairs, I'm often fine on the chip side of things. The Molt side of things is where I need to level. If you look at the Uranus Planet card that levels up 2 pairs, you get plus 20 chips, but only plus 1 Molt. So oftentimes I'll need Bolt. I don't really need the chips. And that same thing applies to Devious Joker, which is giving you 100 chips for playing a straight. I don't need chips if I'm playing straights. It's coming from the hand level. I'm good there. It's coming from the cards I'm playing. What I do need is Molt from, let's say, Crazy Joker. Crafty Joker, plus 80 chips for playing a flush. Again, D category. Chips are underutilized in this game, but I don't think these Jokers are the answers to your problems when it comes to chips. All right, moving on to one of my favorite halvesies, Mr. Half Joker. Plus 20 Molt, obviously, Half Joker has a very hard counter when it comes to the Psychic, which forces you to play 5 cards to score. Outside of that one specific boss line, which can show up ante 1 onward, so it's available the whole game. Half Joker is pretty amazing. 20 Molt for basically my pair build or high card build. That's getting put in the A category. Now, it doesn't work if you're playing straights or you're playing full houses or you're playing 2 pair. But Half Joker will keep you alive, will help you move towards that goalpost of winning the gold stake run more times than not. He has been the savior of many runs, and oftentimes for me, if I see Half Joker, that's a signal to me like, oh, I rolled a Half Joker. We're playing pairs this game. We're going to play pairs. We're going to use Half Joker as a Molt until we can find other things to kind of fill that void, find scaling Molt, and yeah, all in all, really solid plus Molt Joker, because again, just the sheer amount, plus 20 is a lot of Molt, especially early on for a common. Stencil, times 1 Molt for each empty Joker slot. Stencil's a weird one because it kind of can be useful early game, but I'm often finding myself myself late game filling those Joker slots. But it is X-Mult. It is helpful. I'm going to put it in the B category. I feel like my usage of it is more of an A category, but I really think the true talents of it, and as I'm getting better at gold stakes, it's slowly slipping into that B category where oftentimes I'm really utilizing my Joker slots for, an abundance of reasons. You don't have the availability to create empty Joker slots so that Stencil can get that times mult, unfortunately. So, it can help you early game, but I think it falls off much quicker than pretty much every other X-Mult Joker. And as you learn to utilize all those Joker slots, it becomes harder and harder to kind of fit Joker Stencil in there. Now, in a pinch, you need X-Mult. It can help, but sometimes in that pinch, you can't really afford to sell multiple Jokers to even give it the X-Mult to begin with. All right, Four Fingers allows flushes and straights to be played with 4 cards. This is going to go in the C category. On a straight build, obviously, fantastic get, but I think Shortcut is just a better version of Four Fingers, and at the same time, oftentimes don't have the luxury to use it on a util Joker that's not really a moneymaker. You can find ways to argue that this makes you money, but there's very clear better econ Jokers than Four Fingers. In fact, I'm going to put Four Fingers in D tier. I really don't think I need it. Now, if you are playing straights, here's the argument. It scales really well. You're getting a lot of the points from the hand level. And really the toughest part of playing straights on gold stake is just drawing the straight. And only having to play 4 to the straight is a lot easier. Counter argument to that would be there's just such a better version of this in Shortcut. And when Four Fingers comes up, I'm often not willing to part ways with something up in my Joker slots, even when I'm playing straights for it. It's just not worth it. It also costs a ton of money, and econ is such a vital part of the gold stake experience. So for me, it's D, borderline C tier. It's not very good. And we'll move on to Mime. And this is where what I feel a Joker is when you look at the holistic version of Balatro, white through gold stake, endless run, challenge runs, everything, multiplayer maybe in a future video. Mime is a good Joker. It's a fun Joker. But for gold stakes, it has its place. It's going to go in the C tier because I do see its usage when you have something like a Shoot the Moon, maybe even a Raised Fist. You have quite a few gold Jokers. It can build economy pretty quickly for you. So there is a place for Mime, but it's not nearly as powerful as it is in other parts of the game, and is often not the reason you are going to win a gold stakes run. I find most of the time that I have Mime, I could have just won the run without Mime, or I probably was better off taking something else instead of it. And for that reason, I think it's in the C tier where I use it enough, but if I'm really going to analyze my gold stakes runs, I think I've been playing with it like it's a B tier Joker when really it's a C tier Joker. I could have utilized other things in its spot. Credit card. Credit card has a very specific use in gold stakes where if you run out of money, and there's a valuable shop, maybe you can grab credit card and then buy the thing you really want to buy that will keep you alive. Hopefully build your economy back up and sell it. I've not mastered that art at all. If I buy credit card, I put myself into a hole and the run is over and I lose. I've seen some people utilize it, but it's such a hyper specific use. I think it's C bordering on F tier. I'm not going to quite put in F tier because it actually has something useful about it, but it is not very good whatsoever. Moving on to the dagger. The dagger is scaling plus mult by giving you double the mult of the card it's destroying. Now, the problem with dagger is twofold in my opinion. Gold stakes, hard to maintain an economy, which you need if you're going to be supplying the dagger with Jokers. 2, similar to Stencil, every time you use the dagger, you are killing a Joker. So you're really only playing with 4 Joker slots while you are building the dagger. However, if you're able to get an egg, or if you're able to get some more expensive Jokers and you just do it a few times and you get to like 20 or 30, that's probably enough to give you what you kind of need, and then you're kind of focused on X-Mult and you can fill all the Joker spots. I'm going to put it in the B category. I think when I started this gold stakes journey of really diving in and playing pretty much mainly gold stakes for the past few months of Balatro, I would have had it in C or D. I see the value now. And we've had a few dagger runs where we have a $30 plus egg, and immediately dagger basically won the run for us. So it can be a run winner in that way. And generally speaking, scaling Mult is something you don't want to pass up in this game. So as long as you can figure out a way to have the economy to support ceremonial dagger, it is very useful, and I think it is a B tier Joker. Banner. I want to argue we may have our first F tier, but I can't do that to Banner. I'm still going to put it in the D tier, even with only 2 discards. So when you're playing on gold stakes, if you're playing on anything but the red deck, you're only starting with 2 discards. You're only going to be getting 60 chips, and you can't discard anything. However, those 60 chips can be a lifesaver. It's similar to pretty much everything in this D category, besides Four Fingers and Credit Card. Well, basically besides Four Fingers, where it's kind of a last-ditch effort in the early game to just get over that hump and find something better for the long game. So I'll give it that. It has some use to it. Mystic Summit plus 15 Mult when you have 0 discards remaining. Oftentimes in Balatro, you want to utilize all your discards, so that's not a big deal. And 15 Mult is really solid. I'm going to put it in the B category. This is a great early middle game Joker. You probably want to get rid of it around ante 4, definitely probably ante 5. However, again, this is an example of something that can really get you over that hump. That is a lot better version of what you see in that D category, maybe even that C category, of just increasing the survival rate of the game for you. And when you find Mystic Summit early on, it's almost a grab 10 times out of 10, because you just want that extra 15 Mult unless you already have your plus Mult figured out. And then you're probably on your way to a win anyway, regardless. And really the only reason you're passing up Mystic Summit is because you're looking for really those S and A tier Jokers. So Mystic Summit for me is a grab a majority of the time. Love it. I think it's a banana. It's a Michelle that isn't going to leave you, which we'll talk about Michelle in a bit. Moving on to Marble Joker. Adds 1 stone card to the deck when the blind is selected. This is going in the D tier. There is uses for Marble Joker. However, the reason it's D tier for me is because it's just adding it to the deck. If it was similar to Certificate in the way that it add the stone card to my hand, so let's say if I'm spamming pairs or high card, I know I can play a stone on that first one every single time or at some point, that would be great. But because it's just going to add 1 stone card to a 52 card deck, really I just see this as thickening my deck and not really bringing any value to it. So all in all, I have had 1 or 2 successful runs. It can work with hologram, of course. It can work with hologram DNA, of course. But most of the time, Marble Joker, it just ain't it. It's not going to be your solution for chips. Loyalty card. Times 4 Mult every 6 hands played. Loyalty card, we've had one time you were useful for me. And for that, I will spare you the F tier. But you're going in the D tier. All right? No, I want to put in an F so bad. I'm putting in an F. Hear me out. Yes, you saved me one time, loyalty card. But for loyalty card to really work, you have to be in such a specific scenario where it is only there to save you for the very final boss, where you basically have enough points to beat everything else, but the way the final boss setup, you need loyalty card to hit on one of those hands. Or you have 6 hands, which means you have both hand vouchers, Nacho Tong included, so you have 6 total hands, and you can actually play and use loyalty card every single round. So either you're in a spot where loyalty card can help you every round, but it's this hyper specific scenario where you got tier 1 and tier 2 level vouchers for hands, or it's a last ditch savior for the boss blind, in which Luchador is probably just a better version of helping you save your life against the final boss. So for me, it's 1 out of 100 runs where I'm going to see loyalty card and I'm going to grab it. Maybe even worse than that. So I just don't see it. I probably underrate it, but I personally don't get use out of it. 8 ball. 1 in 4 chance of getting a tarot when you play an 8. Now, I think if I was Dr. Spectre and I was at another level of this game, maybe this is higher up on the tier list. But for me, this is D. And that's because most of the time, I'm not going to be building towards 8s. So the only way I'm really going to get a lot of usage out of 8 ball is if I get it early enough to build my deck towards 8s. And then in a weird way, it becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're building towards 8s with the tarot cards that the 8 ball is giving you, or lack thereof, because again, it is 1 in 4, which means let's say you play a 4 of a kind a round of 8s to win. You're only getting 1 tarot card a round, which isn't terrible, but that's just a cardomancer with extra steps, right? That's not that great. Maybe if you're able to play 2 4 of a kinds of 8s, but now you're talking about you need 8 8s to really get a lot of value out of this. Hallucination, which we'll talk about later, is basically this, except a lot easier and allows you to play whatever you want. So 8 ball, because it has some sort of use, and I have grabbed it multiple times, I will put in D above loyalty card, but this is on the edge. This is on the edge of F and D tier. I really don't think there's value there due to the 1 in 4. I do think this should become 1 in 3 personally. Even at common, I don't think that's too powerful, but we'll see. I would love to test that out. Misprint. Misprint has hurt me more times than it saved me at the same time. Getting a random 0 to 23 plus mult is still really solid in the early game. I have to put it at least in C tier. The RNG element of it is, of course, scary, but it also can be very helpful. Look, on average, it's giving you plus 12 mult, right? That's pretty fantastic for an early common Joker. That is almost a Mystic Summit. And if you spam it enough, it'll help you. I think it's better for spammy builds. So if you're playing high card or pairs where you're playing a lot of a certain hand, you want Misprint because it's going to even itself out. If you are playing straights or 4 of a kind where you just need 1 hand to win, don't utilize Misprint. It will hurt you. It'll hurt everything that you've worked towards in that gold stake run. I think you can see the emotion in my eyes. But overall, plus 12 mult on a common Joker and no conditions need to be met is pretty solid. So for that, I'm going to leave it in the C tier. All right, moving on to Dusk. So re-triggers cards on the last played hand. I don't know how to feel about Dusk. It can be useful. I think Dr. Spectre always says play Jokerless to learn how to get better at gold stakes, because it really teaches you how to leverage enhanced cards and all the mechanics available to you in Balatro, not just Jokers. However, Dusk is only going to be really useful to you on gold stakes if you're playing like that 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, or straight build where you're playing the 1 big hand to win, right? You're not playing a spam build. And in that sense, it hurts your economy because now that spam build has to happen on the last hand, which you don't love. Generally speaking, I think it's D tier. I don't think it's super useful. It was the last Joker we see ++ for a reason, in my opinion. Now, there's definitely Jokers that I think are less valuable than Dusk. Don't get me wrong. But more times than not, there are just other things that are going to do Dusk's job better. You can just get a plus mult Joker, a plus chips Joker, instead of having to re-trigger your bonus cards or your mult cards or your glass cards. And again, the mechanics of it having to be your last hand, I think Dusk has a lot of fun potential in Balatro, but for gold stakes strictly, it's just not useful enough to be put any higher than D tier. Raised Fist, I do think is pretty fantastic. So adds double the rank of your lowest ranked card held in hand for mult. This is a spam build's dream because you can basically play 5 cards. Say you're playing pairs. You'll play a pair, and then you'll play the lowest other 3 rank cards in your hand Oftentimes, Raised Fist is just plus 20 molt. There's once in a while where it's a little bit lower. I think it's enough that I almost argue it should be put in A tier. I'm going to put in A tier. It is probably, next to Half Joker, my favorite early plus molt Joker. Flat in parentheses. Most of the time it's flat in the sense that it doesn't scale, but of course it has a range based off of the cards in your hand. But it's also really easy to play around. I actually think it's easier to play around than Half Joker, in the sense that there's very few boss blinds that are going to make Raised Fist just the death of you. And technically, you still could play a straight build. You still can play 4 of a kind build with Raised Fist and it still have an effect. It lasts a lot longer than these other early game Jokers. And all in all, pretty much whenever I see Raised Fist in an early shop, I'm grabbing it. I find it very useful. Chaos the Clown, 1 free reroll in the shop. Look, we need to have a real talk, Chaos. I didn't respect your game. I really didn't. You are pretty fantastic. You're going to be put in the B tier. It is a pretty phenomenal econ Joker, because having that free reroll, that's like a free $5 every single round. That's better than Gold Joker, right? And it could be even more depending on how many times you plan to reroll. It's something that kind of scales with you. It feels rough having a whole Joker spot not wasted, but spent on Chaos, because maybe you don't need to reroll the shop. But that's why it's not A or S tier. But it is a very solid econ Joker. And it's time I finally respect Chaos's game, and I've been using it a lot more, and I'm playing better for it. Fibonacci is next. Each played Ace 2, 3, 5, 8 gives plus 8 molt. Due to the nature of it being plus 8 molt, that is pretty solid. I am going to put it in the B category. However, I will put the caveat here. I still kind of treat Fibonacci like an early game Joker, especially on gold stakes. The amount of plus molt it's giving you, unless you have something like a hack and you're playing like 4 of a kind 5s, it's not going to be enough plus base molt to really satisfy what you need. Now, the good thing about Fibonacci is that plus molt is happening in your hand, right? So if you have steel cards, if you have glass cards, that molt is being added before you can make it so the molt's added before the glass card. It will definitely come before your steel card goes off, which is a huge plus. But generally speaking, Fibonacci is not my end game solution. It is a early to middle game solution. And I think it is better than most of these, but it is also uncommon and costs a little bit more. And does restrict your gameplay around a very specific set of cards. Not terrible, still in the B tier, but it's not quite as good as I maybe once thought it was for Gold 6. Okay, Steel Joker, times 0.2 molt for each steel card in your full deck. Look, this can only show up after you have a steel card, which I actually think is a minus to it, right? Like, if it could show up right away, maybe I could grab it and then build my deck towards steel cards. This is going to go into the D category. I just almost never am going to have enough steel cards for this to make a big difference. You need 5, right? You need 5 to give it times 2 molt. That's a lot of steel cards. Now, there's a potential that I've put that much in there. But by that time, it feels so hyper specific. I have not had a single gold stakes run thus far that has utilized Steel Joker. I can see a world in which it would be applicable where maybe I have a Vagabond or something where I've been able to create quite a few steel cards, but I still don't have an economy. I don't have quite enough X-Mult, and this is going to make a difference. But the thing is, probably not, right? Like, if I'm using steel cards, I'm probably leveraging that. So I'm getting all my molt from my hand. So I don't need extra X-Mult in my Joker slots. I probably want to keep getting more X-Mult, whether it's glass cards or other steel cards. It's just weird in the way that I think it's more of a win more Joker, and I don't think it's super useful. Scary Face. This is A tier. There's not a lot of good ways to get chips in this game. Scary Face is pretty darn reliable. Unless you're playing the boss that is going to debuff your face cards, this is a fantastic option. Even if you're playing pairs, right? You play 2 face cards, that's 60 chips. That's as much as Banner, but I got to utilize my discards, which discards in this game are very important. You want to find your gold cards. You want to leverage maybe mail and rebate. So I think Scary Face is one of the best, and it is fantastic for something like a 4 of a kind build, maybe even a straight build, 3 of a kind builds. It is good chips. Maybe I'm being a little too... All right, B tier. I got a little excited putting it in A tier. Abstract Joker, B tier. Very similar to Mystic Summit. It's just giving you a nice amount of plus mult. Maybe not as much as Raised Fist or Half Joker. Granted, I don't have to do anything with Abstract Joker, which is nice. But I think I'd rather have the extra plus mult of Raised Fist and have to do something specific to get it over maybe the plus, 9 to 15 I'm going to get from Abstract Joker. Delayed gratification. We already went over this with Banner. I want to utilize my discards. And since I only have 2 discards, you're only giving me $4 a round. F tier. It is an F tier gold stake Joker. It is just not good. There is such better ways to build your economy in this game. And most of them revolve around, again, leveraging your discard. Say it with me. So we don't stand delayed gratification in this household. I've tried to make it work. Maybe you can pick it up for like a round or 2 to just get an extra couple bucks to get the economy going. But, man, it's just not good. Again, a lot of this I think can change when a future update comes out where the blue stake is reworked and we get that discard back maybe. It seems like what Local Thunk is alluding to in interviews, but for now, no. Hack. Retrigger those low cards. I'm going to put that in the C. I think it's similar to mine, where there are places to leverage this. Maybe just not enough places. I do like the fact that if I get it, I can build towards my 5s, my 3s, or what have you, and I get its effect whenever. While Dusk is nice in the way that it can retrigger all your cards no matter what they are, but it's only for one hand, I rather trade off for only retriggering a specific subset of cards, but whenever I want. I want the say over when you're retriggering, so I think I prefer Hack. I also prefer Sock and Buskin when we get to it. Pareidolia. Make all my cards face cards. I think at gold stakes, you can't really afford to utilize Pareidolia. Maybe if you get Midas Mask, that is the one time you get a sick combination. But 99.99999% of the times you see Pareidolia, you don't have Midas Mask. Maybe not that crazy a percentage, but 98% of the time I see Pareidolia, I don't have Midas Mask. That's the only time I would think of picking it up, because otherwise I have enough face cards for my photographer for whatever I'm doing. I don't need Pareidolia. There's really just no point to it. Because if I'm Chad photographing, I'm probably good with the face cards I have. I don't want to waste a whole Joker slot. I'm making my 6s face cards as well. Again, it's a card where there's probably some unique, really fun, cool builds. You're probably not getting those in gold stakes if you're trying to win reliably. Moving on, Gross Michelle plus 15 mult, but she has a 1 in 6 chance of disappearing on your butt. Still fantastic. It's going to be right next to Abstract Joker. They do the same exact thing. I mean, I guess the benefit with Michelle is I don't have to buy any other Jokers, and I still get plus 15 mult, so I'm going to put it at the top of the B category. But wonderful, plus 15 flat mult, amazing. Will always disappear on you in the worst time, but we deal with it. Odd Todd. I think Odd Todd has to go in the same category as Scary Face. While I do think Scary Face is more reliable, easier to use, and probably aligns with what you're doing more often, which is building towards face cards, Odd Todd is still a very good early game chip Joker, and even middle game chip Joker if you're playing like a 3 of a kind. Sometimes even pairs. Again, it's giving you 31 chips. That is not nothing. That is decently useful. Even Steven, plus 4 mult for even cards. This is very, very slightly better than the suit Jokers, and for that, I am going to put in the C category, and hear me out. The reason why is, you've probably heard me say it a million times already in this video, but pair builds are just probably the most reliable way to win gold stakes. I love 4 of a kind builds. I try and build towards that sometimes. Oftentimes they're not the same suit, but you know what they are? The same rank. So even Steven just kind of utilizes the whole full house or 3 of a kind or pair or 4 of a kind. you can get more out of it by specifically only playing even cards. But again, it's still only an early game Joker. It's not going to scale well enough for you. The Scholar, give 20 chips and +4 mult with played aces. With the limited amount of discards in hands you have at gold stakes, for this, really, again, let's be honest, it's only an early game Joker, and the chances of you finding your aces are not as good as you want it to be. This is a D tier Joker. I've tried to make it work a couple times. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll pick up Scholar. It'll keep me alive, right? Only to draw one ace out of all my hands and discards, right? And then you die. Simple as that. And it's just not good enough. There's much better options up here. Business card. Played face cards, 1 and 2. Chance to give me $2. So basically, your expected value is $1 per face card. That's great. That's B tier. That's money. Money is king at gold stakes. If you have enough money, you will find the jokers, the tarot cards, the planet cards that you need to survive. Simple as that. Business card is, I think, a very good option to get there. Again, you're probably building towards face cards for various reasons. Business card is just this added benefit of giving you a ton of dough for those face cards. Supernova. As the number of times poker hands has been played to mult, this is a scaling mult Joker. This one's very good. I think Doctor did a video way back when and put Supernova really low on his tier list, and I'm not going to speak to that. I've just had some comments about it in chat, and my brain fogged up for a second because I wanted to speak about it, but there's no point. This is my video. Let's talk about it. Supernova scales. In my opinion, again, most reliable way to win gold stakes right now is spam builds, high cards, pairs. Supernova and spam builds, match made in freaking heaven. You're going to scale this very well. This is going to be great. This is going to be perfect for your flat mult. End the story. Ride the bus. For me, it's Supernova, but worse because I can't play face cards, which I probably would love to play. And there's a rare situation or two where you might be forced to play a face card and then you basically lose, or you have to make sure you avoid that situation. So it still scales, and it allows scaling by playing anything, which is nice, but due to the possibility of just straight up dying, I am going to put it in the B category. I will say this, the one place that the bus really has an upper hand over Supernova is the I, where you can only play one of every single hand type, so you can spam different hand types and still get the plus mult from the bus, but you couldn't necessarily do that with Supernova. Or you can pivot builds right with the bus because it's still going to give you that plus mult. I talked myself into it. It's also A tier. It's an A tier for a different reason than Supernova, but it's still pretty darn good. Space Joker, my beloved. We had a run recently. I kid you not, this thing was going off like 75% of the time. We went on a date. We talked it over. We had a few drinks. I won't get into the details of that night between Space Joker and I, but it was beautiful. Anyway, overall, this card needs probably a little bit of upgrading. I'm going to put in the C category. Again, just because spam builds are so prevalent. I think if they become any less prevalent and there's not changes to this card, it immediately goes into D category. Because 1 and 4 is just... it's not really good enough to justify buying it and using the Joker spot on it. But if you get a burglar, which, you know, we can talk to burglar right now. It's one away. That combination is fantastic. Burglar in general, because of the spam build nature of Balatro Gold Stakes right now, is S tier. It is a fantastic card. It gives you 3 extra hands. You already only have 2 discards, so it's giving you basically, even if you just use those hands as discards, 1 extra discard. However, hands are economy in this game. Outside of the green deck, hands are the things that gives you money. So even if you were only playing, let's say like a 4 of a kind or straight build where you're one-shot and you're not playing a spam build, this is just an econ Joker then, in my opinion. And it can be copied. So if you have a blueprint, all of a sudden you got 6 extra hands in. It's really hard to mess up a run with that many hands. That's usually a victory right there. So our first S tier of the day. Egg. A tier. A is incredible econ. $3 a round. It's a bank. It can be utilized with Ceremonial Dagger to give you an extreme amount of plus mult. It can be utilized with Swashbuckler to give you an extreme amount of plus mult. It can kickstart the economy and give you money for basically snowball into all the money you could ever need via temperances. In a pinch, you can sell it and just get that money back. There's so many uses for egg. Probably, in my opinion, the most underrated Joker that we're going to go over today. Maybe there's a couple others, but I think people meme about egg, but truly it is one of the most powerful Jokers at the gold stake level. Blackboard. Time stream mult if all cards held in hand are spades or clubs. This is A tier Joker. This is amazing. X-Mult. Again, the spam build nature of current meta for gold stakes lends itself a little bit more to Blackboard, but you can still make it work even in a 4 of a kind because you still get to throw away a card. It just needs a little bit more deck manipulation. It is very close to S tier in my eyes, but it's just not quite there. But more times than not, I'm going to be picking up Blackboard. It is, there's only so many X-Mult Jokers. Fantastic, fantastic option for gold stakes. Runner. Runner is a weird one for me. It is B tier, almost A tier. However, the way I utilize Runner is a little interesting. If you are playing straights, Runner's kind of useful. It's nice, but it's not necessary. We've went over this. If you level up your straights, chips are good. You don't need extra chips. You don't need to waste a Joker spot on extra chips. However, if you're playing straights, one thing you can do is build up Runner and then switch to something simple to play like pairs, because all of a sudden, if Runner's giving you 200 chips, right, because you've played lots of straights and you already have flat mult, you can play whatever hand you want. You got the mult, you got the chips, you don't have to play straights anymore. So the reason Runner is so good, in my opinion, is you play a lot of straights in the early game, you have some kind of scaling plus mult or just solid plus mult, now you have your chips. It opens the game to allow you to play whatever you want. I've had a lot of Runner X pants builds where you're playing 2 pairs and straights to level those 2 up, and then you get to a point where they're supplying enough. I can play whatever the heck I want, and as long as I have an X-Mult Joker, we're winning. So it can be very, very powerful. It's just in a weird way, if you're exclusively just going to play straights for the rest of the game, you probably don't need Runner because you're probably just going to level up via Saturns to a high enough level where you're good. Where this is maybe only times your score by like 1.5 because Saturn's at such a high level. Ice Cream, plus 100 chips, minus 5. One of the greatest Jokers, and it's not just an early game Joker. There's not a lot of good chip Jokers in this game. And for that reason, you could be an anti-6 and 100 chips can make a solid difference. And yes, it goes down slowly, but the fact that it just starts at 100 fresh right out the gate, for me, makes it an A-tier Joker, makes it a lifesaver in a lot of places in this game. DNA feels like a luxury at gold stakes where maybe you have a really good card, but if you want to use DNA, you kind of have to make space for it, which you probably can't on your Joker board with your Joker slots. I actually think DNA is kind of like a decent early game Joker on gold stakes, where if you have one purple seal or blue seal or a red seal gold card or something, you can copy it a few times and then throw it away. You got a bunch of copies of that card and then move on to the rest of the run. I find it very rare that I'm using this in the late game, but it's still hard to put in the D category because I do feel like I've gotten so much more out of it than these Jokers down here, similar to Space Joker. So maybe this is DC tier, but for me right now, I'm just having it at C. All right, moving on to Splash. Actually has like some use, especially with the whole spam meta that I keep speaking to with high card and pairs, but it's not much. It's probably F tier. Like, I don't ever willingly buy Splash ever. There's such a hyper specific use case for it, with maybe like seeing double and wanting to be able to get a scoring club in there. I really don't know, or just some extra chips on your pair high card builds. That's pretty much it for Splash. Maybe I need to utilize it more, but I often find myself just not being able to justify a Joker slot for it. Blue Joker, we're just speaking to how chips are hard to come by, and for that reason, it's weird. I don't feel like it's a great Joker, but he's getting put in the B category. Sorry, you can't see him behind the little infographic I have up here. We'll show the whole tier list at the end, but generally speaking, I don't love Blue Joker because I want to thin out my deck, which in turn makes Blue Joker worse, but most of the time it's going to be like 60, 70 chips. It's going to be solid. It's like a slightly melted ice cream. I don't think it's as good as ice cream. I'd rather just get that, utilize it for the time being, and then sell it and get, maybe another ice cream. But Blue Joker serves a purpose. You need chips in this game. They're not easy to come by. It's pretty good. 6 cents. It's B tier. And hear me out. I was not a believer in 6 cents. But this is what 6 cents is. It's deck thinning, right? Like it's going to delete a card you're probably not building towards in sixes, because who the heck is building towards sixes? And it's giving you a spectral card, which they are very powerful. It could change the whole trajectory of your run if you land a blue seal, a purple seal, maybe even a red or gold seal can really change the trajectory. And Immolate, of course, the greatest card in the game, $20 and deck thinning. Even a familiar can be pretty useful. So there's a lot of great things that can come out of those spectral cards. But at the end of the day, I'm grabbing 6 cents for 4 rounds just to remove 4 cards from my deck. Deck thinning is king in games like Balatro, in deck builders. And it's no different here on Gold Stake. Constellation. A scaling X-Mult Joker that has a very straightforward way of scaling that X-Mult, albeit a tiny bit slow. S tier. I remember for the past year, been tuning in the Raffle streams. I don't think there's been a day where I haven't seen Constellation appear on his Joker slots at some point. And now, as someone who's been playing almost exclusively Gold Stakes as of recent, I get it. It's so good. It's so good because even though it scales a little slowly, as long as you have some economy, you're going to be able to often find 2-3 planets a shop, if not 4 or 5, which means after an ante, Constellation's in a good enough spot at times 2+, that it's helping you win, and then it's kind of scaling with you for the rest of the game. As those antes get bigger and bigger, well, Constellation's gained to ×3, now it's ×4, meanwhile, your hand level is also increasing, so there's so many great ways to utilize Constellation. I also think what Constellation benefits from is the fact that blue seals are very powerful. You're always looking for blue seals in standard packs and of course the spectral card if you can get it. And every time you utilize that blue seal or two, Constellation is now also growing with the hand level of your cards. Hiker. Every played card permanently gains +5 chips when scored. I want to make it work so bad. I just can't. It's F tier for me. I think if you get a very early hiker and you decide that you're playing 4 of a kind of a specific build, maybe, but we have to remember on Gold Stakes, because you only have 2 discards, it's so hard to make that work from the get-go. And I just think there's better ways of going about getting your chips in this game that don't rely on a hyper-specific set of cards. And yeah, that's really all I got here. I haven't been able to make Hiker work on Gold Stakes, and oftentimes I haven't been compelled to try just because it's not quite good enough. Faceless Joker, earn $5 if 3 or more face cards are discarded. It's a little hard to make work, but it is going to be put in the B tier because it's quite a bit of dough. And most of the time in the early game, if you play your cards right and you just have some kind of plus mult or plus chips for the scoring, you can get $10 very reliably, definitely $5 every single round. And that's huge on Gold Stakes because that bumps you up an interest tier level. So if you had to spend down to $14 or let's say $10, that $5 now gets you to $15. You get an extra dollar from interest. So it really becomes earning $6 if you discard 3 or more face cards. It is a fantastic econ Joker. And it's hard. I really want to put in the A tier. I don't quite think it deserves to be in there, but it's close. Green Joker, so boring, but so dang reliable. Look, I want to utilize my discards, and the thing is, at a certain point, Green Joker is big enough that you can utilize your discards, right? That's all there is to it, right? It is very reliable scaling, similar to Ride the Bus, and everything I said about Ride the Bus applies to Green Joker. Maybe even the fact that you can't really crash it should put it up here, but this is going to sound so petty, and maybe you're going to stop listening to the video after this. I hate how annoying it is that every time I discard, it tells me -1 molt. It makes the game slower. It hurts. It just feels bad. And honestly, it does have an effect on the game in the early game, right? Like if you get a mail-in rebate and Green Joker is your only molt, I can't utilize the mail-in rebate the way I want to. So there's a real Balatro reason that I'm putting this in B tier, but it also just doesn't feel great. And it can be annoying to play around. Superposition, create a tarot card if the hand contains an ace or a straight. I've come around on superposition being a little bit better on other stakes. Still not behind it on gold stakes. And the reason is it's hard enough to play straights with only 2 discards. Now you're forcing me to have to play an ace high straight. Well, in order to do that, I already need deck, thinning and, crafting to have a lot more ace through 10 cards. Or ace through 5 cards, if you will, for the straight. If I've already done that, I don't need the tarots. That's all there is to it here. Again, it's a little bit of a win more. So either I've crafted my deck already in such a way that I can really leverage this and then I don't need it. Or if I need those tarot cards to leverage my deck and deck thin and whatnot, well, I can't get it because I only got 2 discards. Anyway, Cavendish. ×3 molt. Of course, Gross Michelle has to go extinct, but this is the greatest card in gold stakes. It is just a flat ×3 molt. X-Mult is so hard to come by. It's so vital on gold stakes due to the high scoring requirements. ×3 is incredible. ×3 for doing nothing is incredible. Cavendish, goated with the sauce. Give me some banana bread. I don't know. To-do list. Earn $4 if poker hand is played. This can be incredible economy. Of course, there's times it lands on straight flushes. But a lot of times I'll pick it up and wait until it hits something that is reasonable. And then on the times that it does hit a high card or it does hit a pair, this could be $16 in a round, no problem. So to-do list is incredible economy, even probably a little bit more reliable than faceless unless you have some deck manipulation towards face cards already. So very great. Card Sharp, another S tier. Look, it's ×3 molt. There's one boss in the game, the Eye, that can kill this because you don't get the ×3 molt because you can only play each hand type once against the Eye. But outside of that, 1 in 24 chance of getting that boss. Card Sharp is incredible, even if you're playing 4 of a kind or straights, because by the time you need ×3 molt, you probably have moved your deck or maybe gotten some extra hands or discards that you can play 2 of that kind of big scoring hand. Or if you do have those big scoring hands, yeah, maybe you don't need Card Sharp. But for the most part, I'm always grabbing this even in those circumstances because it is so incredible at how easily it hands out that ×3 molt. Red card. Formal apologies for putting you in F tier at the beginning of Balatro. I don't know what you'll be on in my update tier list when the game update comes out. Who knows when in 2025. And a few weeks later, we do like an overall another Joker tier list. But for now, on gold stakes, buddy, you're in S tier. You literally have climbed from the bottom all the way to the top. You are the best scaling plus molt Joker, I think. I don't know. We'll see as we keep going. You reliably 3 to 6+ plus molt every single round, very quickly gets up to 40, 50, 60 molt. And you can play whatever around it. It is so beautiful. Yes, you need a little bit of economy, but that doesn't concern me. He's incredible. I can't say enough. Pick up red card. You'll win more gold stakes. Madness, A tier. Not quite S tier because it does require you to have eternal jokers around it. So therefore, if you're in a run, let's say with a non-eternal red card where that's all your plus molt, and maybe let's say you have a runner for your chips and that's not eternal, you legitimately can't grab Madness, you'll lose. So for that reason, I mean, maybe it even should be in B tier, but as long as you have eternal jokers or you're not reliable on cards in that way, how fast it scales its X-Mult is incredible. And at gold stakes, you see enough eternals, in my opinion, that you can easily build around Madness, or you can easily make the pivot to Madness, even in maybe a middle ante. It's a very, very, very good card. Sorry to bring it down enough. But when the small blind or big blind is selected, it gains times 0.5 molt and destroys a random joker. Now, if all your jokers are eternal, it won't destroy anything. That's your fun fact for the day. Square Joker. I hate on this Joker. It's kind of a meme, though. Do not tell my Twitch viewers, but we're going to put them in B tier. It's pretty solid chips. It's hard enough in this game to find chips. At least it scales. It's pretty easy to play only 4 cards. The only way Square Joker doesn't work is if maybe you're playing 5 of a kind or straights, and we've been over this several times in this video. At that point, you probably don't need a chip Joker anyway, so I should be squaring up more often. I choose not to because, look, I just don't like him. We'll leave it at that. Seance, F tier. Seance gives you a special card when you play straight flushes. You're not playing straight flushes on gold stake. I mean, you can, and you can have a lot of fun, but again, it's probably a win more Joker here where that's not causing you to win. You're having a fun gold stakes run where you've run into some circumstances that you are able to play straight flushes, or you're going after straight flushes, and you're probably fine regardless. You don't need those spectral cards, but hey, you finally had a chance to use Seance for something and have it actually be meaningful. But you're not winning because of it. Riffraff, S tier. Getting 2 free common jokers when econ is so hard to come by in gold stakes is incredible. This is an econ joker in a way because you can sell those jokers. It could feed the dagger. They don't have tags, which means they won't be eternal, rental, or perishable when they come out of Riffraff, so you can make sure you get good versions of some of these better common jokers we went over in this video. Riffraff, chef's kiss, you are beautiful. Vampire. Vampire for me is slowly moving up to S tier, and I'm going to put it in A tier for now. I just don't think it scales quick enough to be put on the same level as Constellation, but for the most part, it's amazing. The times you don't want vampires, maybe you're relying on glass cards in like a straight build, and you're just a little annoyed. You're like, why couldn't I get any other X-Mult Joker? I don't want to lose my enhancements, or I literally can't afford to lose my enhancements. Understandable, and that's why it's in A tiers, because I think personally, I've been leveraging the tarot cards a little bit more, those enhancements a little bit more, and they become a little bit kind of vital to your run. But a lot of times, a majority of the times, if you're doing that, you can pivot to Vampire and you can scale it fast enough. Again, it's just a little bit slower, a little bit more tough to scale versus Constellation, which I think is a little bit more straightforward. It doesn't have a negative effect, right? Constellation, ooh, I leveled up a planet and I helped Constellation. Vampire is like, okay, I got this sick enhancement, but really I need to feed my vampire, so I'm not going to get money from a gold card, or I'm not going to get extra molt from a steel card because I'm going to have to sacrifice it to build up my vampire. Shortcut. So the good version of Four Fingers will go in the B tier. This makes straights so extremely more reliable that if I see a shortcut, oftentimes, as long as I'm in the mental mood to be able to play straights and play with shortcut, you probably should be pivoting the straights at that point, because shortcut just unlock the ability to play 2 or 3 straights every single round. If you can play 2 or 3 straights with how fast they scale and all the other benefits of straights, you should be playing straights. They're fantastic. Hologram. Another very good scaling X-Mult Joker, 0.25 for every playing card added. Now, oftentimes, it's all about deck thinning, and a hologram, of course, is going to maybe force you to fatten up your deck a little bit. But because it scales so fast at 0.25, at where just a couple of standard packs is already giving you times 1.5 mult, maybe you get a cryptid or a familiar or something, all of a sudden it's at 2. For me, it has to be put in S tier because it just scales so quickly, and it has that ability of being a run winner if you get it early. And then, again, fortunately, we've said it plenty of time, you play a spam build. You just play something that you don't need the deck thin around, like high card or pair. And this thing's at times 7, and it's winning you the run. I'm going to put Vagabond in B tier. I think, yes, you want to build economy, but Vagabond usually lets you continually play in the shops because you can get a Temperance, you can get a Hermit from it, you can get lots of gold cards, which are scoring towards the end of the round. And it allows you to really enhance your deck to the point that you can win maybe without all these jokers. So I'm still leveraging Vagabond and having success with it. We'll see as I continue playing Gold Stakes if I feel a little bit worse about it, because I think I may be in the minority of Gold Stakes players here. But for me, I have a ton of fun. I love Vagabond, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. Baron. Obviously, for endless White Stakes runs, other parts of Balatro, this is incredible. For Gold Stakes, I think it's D, borderline C. I'm going to put it at the end of C tier. It probably deserves to put in D tier, but I just can't do it. And I love trying to make Gold Stakes Baron runs work, and you can make them work. But it's not simple, and you need to level up a hand. You need to build lots of kings. All right, it's not worth it. I'm going to put it in D tier. For my enjoyment, I have it in C and B, but this is more about my true thoughts on what I think is good at Gold Stakes. And if we're looking at, I think Baron is in D tier just because, again, you have to build so many kings. You have to level up your hand to a certain amount of level, and it has to be high card or pair, right? Because you got to leverage your hand to have all the kings in it. A lot of issues here with making Baron actually work at the Gold Stakes level. Cloud9, it's just kind of a better version of Golden Joker. We'll put it in the C tier. It's just pretty expensive, that initial investment. It will make its money back after a few rounds, but I want something that is either a little bit more of a long-term investment, like we're about to talk about with Rocket, which I'm going to put in the B tier, or is going to be quickly making my money back, maybe like a to-do list. But Rocket, I'm going to put in the B tier because it actually has really good scaling. If you get Rocket in the first few antes, it can be your economy for the rest of the game where you really don't have to worry about it because it's making you like $7 every round, $10 every round. It scales really fast. And I don't think Rocket gets the credit it deserves of being a good economy Joker. Obelisk. We did a video recently on how to play Obelisk on the Gold Stake level. It is truly a good X-Mult Joker. It's going to be put in the A tier. Not every single run can be pivoted to an Obelisk build, but a lot of times, if you're willing to put in the mental effort and you really just sit down, slow down, and play Balatro around Obelisk, the thing will win you Gold Stakes runs like crazy. It is so powerful at what it does. It's such good X-Mult scaling. I will admit, it's just hard to wrap your brain around. It causes you to have to plan out quite a bit more, in my opinion, when you're playing. Midas Mask, S tier. It is one of the best economy jokers in the game, turning all your face cards to gold cards, whether that's to be sucked off by Vampire later for X-Mult or for economy for the rest of the game, or maybe you leverage Golden Ticket a little bit later, and we'll talk about that. But Midas Mask is incredible. Gold cards are one of the most powerful enhancements, especially in Gold Stakes, because you need that economy, and there's just so much you can do with them. Being able to turn, a quarter of your deck into gold cards very, very quickly with Midas Mask is just ridiculous. I would argue almost overpowered. Luchador. You can sell this card to disable a boss mine. This will absolutely save your booty on some Gold Stakes runs. However, most of the time you're not going to be grabbing Luchador, right? And for that, I have to put in the C tier just because I don't think you're going to gravitate to it as much. But it does have a useful usefulness to it. And when it does appear in that clutch scenario, it feels so good. It's just rare that those things align, right? You need a luchador and then it actually shows up. Moving on to Photograph, S tier. Photograph gives ×2 Molt for the first face card played. You can leverage this with Chad, which we'll get to a little bit later, to create basically all the scoring that you need from 2 common jokers, which is kind of OP. I do think it will be changed in the future update, but for now on Gold Stakes, Photograph is fantastic. I am actually going to put Photograph in A tier because I think its counterpart Chad has even more uses and is not so reliant on the way that I think Photograph is really only good if you have a Chad or maybe a Sock and Buskin. When Chad is good all the time. So for that reason, I am going to put in A. I know both it and its counterpart in the Giga Chad, the Giga Photograph Chad can be in S tier, but I do think I've found myself selling Photograph a little bit more often as of late because a lot of times I have a red card or something, right? And in that way, Photograph is not really helping. Photograph, because it does ×2 Molt when the face card is played, you need that Molt on the hand level. All right, Gift Card is great for temperance value. This is a great econ joker. It is going into the B category. We love upping the value of everything. This can be really great with Swashbuckler. It could also be pretty good with Ceremonial Dagger. But for the most part, you're really using Gift Card for temperance value. Bean. Bean can absolutely save your life. On Gold Stakes, having that extra hand size can be econ. It could be more points. It can do a lot for you. For that reason, I actually do think it's a B tier joker. Of course, it's a short-term play. It will be gone. But in the meantime, let's say you've used Midas Mask to get a lot of gold cards. +5 hand size, that could be an extra $15 plus. Because of the hand size of Bean allowing you to carry more gold cards, or if you have a reserve parking, which we're going to talk about in a second. All in all, Bean having that extra hand size is actually really good. If you have space for it, oftentimes you're going to throw that thing in there and leverage it to its fullest ability. Erosion, really, really good plus Molt if you are on the deck thinning side of things. Just a few hung men, if you will. And this thing is already fantastic. It is an A tier plus Molt joker, in my opinion, for winning Gold Stakes runs. Reserve Parking is B tier for me. Very good econ joker. Works very well with the high cards and the pair builds. And it can jumpstart your economy. Often I use Reserve Parking in the early game to get me to my interest cap, and then probably throw it to the wayside for something a little bit better. But it is very good, very reliable. Mail and Rebate, the GOAT econ joker. Slide this baby to the left. $5 for discarding a specific rank. If you have any kind of deck fixing towards a specific rank and it hits on that, this could easily be $50 in a round, even with only 2 discards. Is that math correct? 5 times 5 is 25. Yep. Times 2 is 50. But it is so much money. And oftentimes, even if it's only $5 here, $10 here, $15 here, $10 here, that's all you need to snowball your run into a victory pretty much instantly. If you get Mail and Rebate early on in a run, it's hard to lose because you get so much money. Even if you get it middle or late game, it's still fantastic. We're now moving on to Shoot the Moon. Earn an extra $1 of interest. Shoot the Moon can be useful for like a round or two. I am going to put it in the C tier. I do think it has a little bit more use than the things below it. But generally speaking, it does feel a little bit more like a win more joker, where if I'm at the interest cap, I'm probably okay on economy. Of course, you can always be better. That's why it's here in the C tier, but it's not going to maybe save your run. It can't build the economy to the interest cap, right? Like a lot of the economy jokers above it that can actually just earn you the money to get you to $25. You already have to have interest for this thing to really help you. So if you're in a hole or in a jam, it's not going to do much, and for that reason, it's only C tier for me. Hallucination, one of the most reliable ways to build tarot cards, is immediately going into the A tier. You have that 1 in 2 chance every time you open up a pack. Fantastic combination with the red card, where you want to open up as many packs as possible. You'll get a bunch of tarot cards, and you'll be getting lots of Molt while you skip those packs. Fortune Teller, I actually think is B tier plus Molt. I know that maybe sounds crazy, but the more I play Gold Stakes, the more I leverage tarot cards. And for that reason, Fortune Teller's often at a solid enough place to be my flat Molt early on, middle game, and even once in a while in the late game. So I think it actually is slightly better than a lot of things below it. Like between a misprint and a Fortune Teller, I think I go Fortune Teller. I think it's right on the border of C and B, but it's enough scaling plus Molt, and it's any kind of scaling plus Molt that I feel comfortable grabbing it. Juggler plus 1 hand size is solid. I'm going to put it at the top of C tier. It's not the end all be all, but it is very good. Drunkard plus 1 discard. I'm actually going to put this in B tier, mainly because stuff like mail-in rebate, this can be an extra $10. This is more than just an extra discard. This could save you by allowing you to discard to find the straight, right, that you need to win. It can help you with money, with mail-in rebate. It can help you find your gold cards. It can help you find your blue seals. Plus 1 hand size is also helpful, and I think they're almost equal in that way, but Drunkard has that benefit of working with something like mail-in rebate or something like Banner, making it a little bit more viable. So I do think for me, it's actually in the B tier. Stone Joker gives plus 25 chips for each stone card full in your deck. Oftentimes, I don't have enough stone cards for this to be worth it. I have had runs where it's been utilized, and again, it's very much in a win more fashion, and for that reason, I'm actually going to put it in the D tier. I think if this thing shows up, most of the time you're not taking it. If you are taking it, you probably were fine to begin with, but now the run's kind of solidified. You're going to win. Golden Joker, a clean $4. You spend $6, pays for itself in a couple rounds. This is B tier. This can help get your economy going. It can help solidify your economy, or it can help you stay around that interest level of 25 while you spend a little bit of money in the shop. Lucky Cat times 2.5 Molt every time a lucky card successfully triggers. This is really close to A tier for me. I think it is incredible scaling Molt, but I think it's just on B tier. And the reason for this is I don't think you often have enough lucky cards to reliably get this to times 2, or maybe you need it quick enough. There's too much of an RNG aspect to it. A lot of times, if you get this early enough and you have the runway, it can far surpass some of the X-Mult stuff above it. But too many times, because this thing can't show up until you have a lucky card, so it's hard to get early in the game. You're getting it at a critical point where now I have to rely on a lucky card hitting. This thing works very well with, funny enough, Chad, where maybe you can play a lucky card and then trigger it a bunch of times to make sure you get something out of it to then scale the cat. And that's when it becomes an S tier. But because it's somewhat reliant on a Chad or a Sock and Buskin or a Hack, or maybe even a Dusk, in my opinion, to more reliably scale, or of course an Oops All Sixes, it's at the top of the B tier for me. But it has maybe higher potential than some of the X-Mult Jokers above it. But if we're just talking about winning a run, I think if I'm doing like a fantasy draft of starting my run, I'm picking these ones above it. All right, moving on to Baseball Card Joker. This is A tier for me. Oftentimes, a lot of these uncommon Jokers are some of the best Jokers in the game. They're already on your team, and this is just making these uncommon Jokers even more vital to the run. The times 1.5 oftentimes is the kind of final golden seal to a victory on a gold stake run. This is very good X-Mult, and generally speaking, I grab it almost every single time I see it. The Bull is pretty darn good, reliable chips. I want to put it in A tier, but hear me out. This is the reason I'm putting it in B tiers. You want to spend the money. You want to spend the money to find these A and S tier Jokers. And the thing is, as you do that, you're hurting the Bull. And oftentimes it is this really difficult game to get the Bull where you need it to be and find the rest of the Jokers to complete a run. I think it is right on the border of A and B tier. It is still a very good Joker. It is still often a run winner. However, there has been multiple times recently where the Bull's actually kind of been the death of me, where I'm not re-rolling enough because I'm trying to satisfy the Bull's need, And I really would have been better off just selling the bull, taking the 100 chips from an ice cream, and re-rolling the shop for better stuff. So be careful with the bull. Very powerful, plus 2 chips for every dollar you currently have. But there are times where I think it's not the best thing ever. Diet Cola, create a double tag. This is a weird one to judge, because if you have a spot and you have extra money, yeah, you're going to grab it. But you oftentimes just don't want to skip in gold stakes. It is very rare you want to skip in gold stakes, in fact. So for that reason, I'm only going to put it in C tier, because there's been a few times where I've even spent the money on a cola or two, and I never skipped the entire run. I didn't end up using it at all. Trading card, S tier. It is a little bit of economy and $3. More importantly, it's deck thinning. We've been over this a million times. Thin your deck and deck fix it to certain cards that you want. Trading card is a wonderful way of doing that. Flash card, plus 2 mult per reroll in the shop. This is B tier for me. Very, very good scaling plus mult. Not the greatest, but it is pretty good. It's just pretty expensive at gold stakes unless you have the reroll vouchers. And when you really think about it, $5 for every 2 mult. I probably rather have red card, which can oftentimes be $4 for 3 mult. So it really just depends where you are. Of course, the good part about flash card is if you have a ton of money, you can just click that button a bunch of times and scale it. While red card, you're limited to the amount of packs that you're served. Popcorn, plus 20 mult. Incredible early game plus mult Joker. Can just straight up win you a few rounds. You don't have to think about literally anything. And even in the middle of the game, getting that boost of an extra 20 more flat mult can be helpful, and you just utilize it for a couple rounds. It's meant to be a short-term fix, and it exceeds in that area. So it is quite useful. Spirit Trousers, it's right up there, in my opinion, with red card in terms of how good of a scaling flat mult Joker it is, or a plus mult Joker it is. I don't think it's as good as red card, but it's really good. And another reason for this is what it's best utilized with is a 2-pair build where you just spam 2 pairs. And 2 pairs level up chips a ton. So Spirit Trousers is your solution to the mult. The leveling up using Uranus cards on 2 pairs will get you the chips you need. And then at that point, really, it's just gain maybe an X-Mult Joker, some Econ with you, and you've won the run. So very, very good. Ancient Joker, I do think is A tier. I don't think I leverage Ancient Joker enough, but when you get Ancient Joker, if you just force yourself to level up flushes, it's basically the run dusted right there. Done and dusted right there. You just have to find a way to get Jupiter to a good level, or maybe some Empress cards, maybe some lucky cards, just gain some extra mult for those times 1.5s to kick off. And of course, if you get like something like a Sock and Buskin or making Dusk very useful, Ancient Joker is incredible. Ramen, really reliable, times 1.8 to times 2 mult. Oftentimes is a mid-game savior, and then you sell it for something a little bit more sustainable in the X-Mult world. But if you're playing a pair build or a high card build and you don't need to discard, it can often just stay at times 2 the whole run, and times 2 is times 2. It's a good amount of mult. So for me, it's an A tier Joker. Walkie Talkie, my heart wants to put it in C tier, but let's be honest, it's really a D tier Joker. It's really only okay for 1 ante, maybe 2, and that is it. The 10 chips and 4 mults for only 2 types of cards, 10s and 4s, is just, it's not on the level of many other common Jokers. Seltzer, on gold stakes, it has its spots. I'm going to put it in B tier. I find myself passing up on Seltzer a lot, but at the same time, now that I think about it, there's been quite a few times where Seltzer can just make itself useful, whether it's maybe scaling Lucky Cat by re-triggering Lucky cards for me a little bit, being an Econ Joker by utilizing it with Golden Ticket for a few rounds. There's just all these mini little games that you can use Seltzer and its re-triggering abilities. It's not probably going to win you the run, although it can if you have a few glass cards and you can just skip to the boss. So there's just so many different ways to make Seltzer a great play for you. I'm gonna put in A tier. It's a really, really solid Joker at gold stakes, and it's just so moldable to fit your run in terms of how it can help you. Castle, I actually think is okay chips. I'm gonna put in B tier. It's a little tedious to get there, but if you really dedicate yourself and you get this thing, you can usually get it to 70, 80, 100 chips rather quickly. Of course, the big thing here is, say it with me, you only have 2 discards in modern day Balatro gold stakes, which is killer. Which means oftentimes this thing is probably only doing like 15 to 20 a round. The thing is, after just one ante, that's probably at a good enough spot where it was worth it. So really, I think I should be using Castle more, and I do think it truly is a B, maybe even A tier Joker when you consider how few chip Jokers there are. Smiley face giving plus 5 mult per face card. That's A tier. That's incredible early game mult. Even in the late game, if you're playing 4 of a kind face cards, that's 20 mult. Or it works really well with photograph, right? You're playing a pair. Well, this gives plus 5 mult before it gives you the ×2 for that face card. All in all, even if you have 1 face card, plus 5 mult is not the worst thing ever. And oftentimes you're probably playing 2 face cards, whether it's a pair, 3 of a kind, or if you're playing straights and there's 2 face cards in there, that's plus 10 mult. This thing's an A tier Joker. It's very, very good. Campfire, 0.25 mult for each card sold, resets when the boss blind is defeated. So Campfire is tedious to use. It is technically A tier in my opinion. It can be your X-Mult as long as you have a little bit of economy. If you have something even like a hallucination, it can help you in that way. By hallucination creates more tarot cards for you to sell. All in all, it's similar to Obelisk for me, where it can be very, very powerful. It's just annoying. I think anything that resets after the anterior round is kind of, I don't know, my little Zaino brain, it's not as satisfying, but it is very good. It is good at getting you victories. Golden Ticket, one of the best econ Jokers in the game, A tier. And the reason it's A tier is, yes, it's only giving you $1 more than what a gold card gives you from just being in your hand. But utilizing Dusk, Seltzer, Sock and Buskin, Hack, Red Seals, you can trigger it multiple times. And you can copy this with Blueprint, right? And make gold cards all of a sudden scored worth $8. This thing scales out of control. If you've watched some of the endless runs that I've been doing or other people have been doing, if you see people with $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, it is because of Golden Ticket. And even in gold stakes recently, I've had a couple runs at $300, $400 in 8 antes because of Golden Ticket and how good and how fast it can scale. Mr. Bones, look, you got to survive in gold stakes to win, and Mr. Bones helps you survive. I've recently been using it a lot more. It's B tier. It's just nice little bit of insurance. Acrobat, ×3 mult on the final hand. Even in a spam build, Acrobat still has its place, and for me is A tier or B tier. It's really hard to put Lucky Cat and Acrobat in the same spot. I want to put Lucky Cat above. I'm just gonna do it. Anyway, ignore that. Acrobat, really solid, can help you get that victory. And again, even in a spam build, having one hand at the end of 4 or 5 hands that has 3 times the score, it's kind of like adding 3 hands, right? Like you're adding a couple more hands because that last hand has so many more points. I really find Acrobat to again to be another one of those cards that's kind of like the final nail in the coffin of the run of like, okay, now it's over. Right? I was barely scraping by, but now I know with Acrobat that last hand is going to score 100,000 points. That'll put me over the edge against the boss blinds and such. Sock and Buskin. This will go in the A tier. If Seltzer's in the A tier, I think Sock and Buskin deserves to go in the A tier. We just talked about how you can leverage it with Golden Ticket. You can leverage it with Photograph. You can leverage it with so much. Retriggering cards is very good even on Gold Stake because you want to leverage those enhancements. You want to leverage things like Photograph. And oftentimes I'm already building towards face cards. Sock and Buskin is going to re-trigger those. Swashbuckler can be very good flat mult. It is going to go in the B tier. I think it's on par with stuff like an Abstract Joker, like a... I'm trying to think of another example that I have here in B tier. I mean, I think Abstract Joker is really the best comparison here. Now, it can't scale farther than that with egg or gift card, but it oftentimes doesn't start off as good as something like Abstract, so that's why it's a little bit in the middle ground for me. Troubadour, +2 hand size, -1 hand per round. Because of the nature of gold stakes already being so limited on hands and discards, I think this is instant D tier for me. I want to take it. I love having the extra hand size. I normally just can't afford to do so because -1 hand kills you. I've tried it in a couple runs recently and it's murdered me. Troubadour is very much just not useful, except in very certain circumstances where maybe you've already deck thinned and you've made a lot of steel cards and you know you want to just hold those in hand while you play a couple of high scoring hands. That's pretty much it. Certificate, again, due to the current meta of more of spam builds for gold stakes, this thing is S tier. When you're building a spam build, maybe deck thinning becomes a little bit less important, although I love having the combination of a trading card and a certificate. But getting sealed cards, getting some of the most powerful cards in the game for free, and they're also in your hand right away, unlike Marble Joker, which throws them in your deck, is incredible. This means I can often get blue seals and instantly have them in my hand to be utilized that round. That almost pays for itself right there in certificate, but also gain the purple seals to get more tarot cards, gain gold seals to get more money. Yes, this is going to fatten up your deck, but again, because it's giving you the seals in your hand right away at the start of that round, it makes it so much more powerful. Moving on to the Smear Joker. For me, this is D tier. Smear Joker has its uses, especially with maybe an Ancient Joker, maybe when you're playing something like Straight Flushes. I don't know. There are use cases for it. Really hard to justify a Joker spot for it unless you already have a build that is winning and it has this hyper specific need for smeared, and then you're like, oh, that's amazing, I got smeared. But most of the time you probably would have won without it, and it is just going to make the run a little bit smoother, a little bit easier. So all in all, not a big fan of the Smeared Joker on Gold Stake. Throwback. The throwback's hard because yes, it's X-Mult, right? It's some kind of X-Mult. You're often begging for any kind of X-Mult on Gold Stake. The problem is you don't skip. I don't skip on Gold Stake, and because of that, it's all the way in the C tier for me. Actually, B tier. The thing is, there can be instances where the last thing you need is an extra 1.5 or 2 mult for that ante. And then when you know that, you can just keep skipping until the end with throwback. And the fact that it does scale at 0.25 per blind skipped is pretty big, which means just 2 full skips, 2 anti-skips, maybe in 7 and 8 gets it to ×2. And that can be the difference. At the same time, even just saying that doesn't seem like it's worth it. Like, I would never trade ×2 mult for 2 full skips unless it's a specific situation. But I think it's in this interesting world where sometimes you're just desperate and you need it, so that's why it's kind of being thrown in the B tier, but there are much better X-Mult options. But the fact that it's X-Mult at all almost automatically promotes it to B tier is maybe what I'm saying here. Chad, retriggering the first played card twice. We've been over it multiple times, whether that's lucky cards, golden ticket, photograph, especially. So many uses for Chad and retriggering cards. This is incredible. It's an Econ Joker. It's an X-Mult Joker. It's a scaling Joker. Like, endless possibilities with how Chad can be utilized. Rough Gem, giving me that $1 for every dime played. It's going to be in the C tier. I've picked it up every now and then. Can be actually like just a little bit of extra economy that does help you, but most times it's not going to be good enough. Bloodstone, the 1-2 chance of only ×1.5 with hearts it's not great. It's something. It will be put in the B tier, but these other two, in Arrowhead at 50 chips per spade played and Onyx Agate at 7 molt for every club are both going in A tier. Incredible flat molt Joker in Agate, which also is happening in hand, which means you then can use steel cards to times 1.5 all the action that Agate added. And then 50 chips for a single spade is incredible. I mean, 2 spades is 100 chips, and it's basically a full ice cream. One of the best chip jokers in the game, one of the better plus molt jokers in the game. So now we have a glass joker. Weird one. Probably a use case for it. Feels like it never shows up in the shop. One of the last jokers for me to get. I'm going to put it in the C tier. It can be kind of like nice insurance in case your glass does break. But oftentimes, it's not going to be enough, right? Like, you're not going to have so much glass break that glass joker is really doing much. And if all that glass does break, you're probably in big enough trouble where this still doesn't save you. I'm really split because it's been hard to get a run going where I could utilize glass joker and it show up. It's just so rare that those two things intersect. It's also just rare that it shows up in the first place because you have to have a glass joker in your, or a glass card in your deck. We're gonna scroll down here a little bit. The top maybe here. Let's actually zoom out. There we go. So that way you guys can still see everything. All right, Showman. D tier. It has its place. It does something. It's not very useful for gold stakes. Because oftentimes you can't afford to waste a joker spot on just having the ability to see the same jokers. And if you do, you're probably already going to win. Flower Pot, the only X-Mult joker that's going to get put in C category. It can work, right? You can make it work. It's very hard to get all the suits in a single hand, which means you need at least 4 cards. It's kind of insane how difficult it is to get that time streak from Flower Pot, and you need wild cards. And then you run the risk of the fact that there's 4 bosses, you are dead. There's 4 bosses that you basically will probably die to if you're running a Flower Pot build, because if that debuffs any one single suit, it's hard. It's really hard. Blueprint copies the you guys already know. Blueprint, best joker in the game. Not close. I would argue, one of the best chip jokers in the game. I've been using more and more to just win in gold stakes, because just playing a few 2s, maybe after 1 ante, this thing's already at 50 chips. Oftentimes by the end of the run, this thing's at 500, 600 chips. And that's incredible. That's far and away the best chip joker, I think, that we currently have available to us. And it makes sense. It is a rare. Mary Andy, +3 discards, but -1 hand size. I'm going to put this in B tier. If you have mail and rebate, this thing's incredible. If you have very specific, like lots of purple seals, this thing's incredible. The -1 hand size is pretty dirty. It's pretty difficult to build around, but 3 discards is a lot. It's this trade-off that I think earns it a spot in being useful for runs and often having a positive effect on a run and being picked up enough to be placed in that B tier. Oops all 6s. We all want oops all 6s runs to work, but really the only reason you're using oops is maybe a couple Wheel of Fortunes, and then mainly for lucky cards. Maybe if you get a space joker, right? The oops all 6s can make things a little bit more viable. But the best is just having lots of lucky cards and having them constantly trigger with an oops. I do think it's B tier. I do think oftentimes I grab it if I see it, because there's certain things that can make it go crazy. It can really make a build hard to die. But there's a lot of times too where I have to sell it because those things never come around in time, and I just need to find something else to give me maybe some scoring or econ or more utility than what oops would be providing me in that moment. The idol in gold stakes is useful. It's not D tier. I think it's better than Baron, but it's still hard to make work because it's hard to get that much deck manipulation that the idol will consistently be put on cards that you care about. All right, moving on to Scene Double. A very reliable way, even on pair builds, of getting ×2 Molt. This is all the way in A tier. I am often buying Scene Double. There's some boss lines that can make this a little hectic, but due to the ease of access in which you get it, it's more beneficial than harmful, and it's all the way put up here. It is so often in the mid game a savior of just getting you to the place you need to be, scoring a lot of points, allowing yourself to focus maybe on econ a little bit more, and then finding these maybe more powerful other X-Mult jokers. Matador, when it works, it makes a ton of money, and we'll put it in the C tier, I guess. This is weird. Matador is useful if you know a boss line's coming up that's going to debuff cards, and you can get, I don't know, like $42 out of it or something, $40 out of it. Other than that, don't use it. It's really hard to judge on a tier list. I don't know what else to say. Most of the time, it's not useful. We'll put it in D tier. But when it is useful, it will give you enough money to spark your econ for the whole game. Hit the Road Jack. It's still not good, even on gold stakes. D tier. It is some kind of X-Mult. We're going to put it in C tier. We're going to put it in C tier. Sorry, towards, you know, it's a little bit of a meme, right? Hit the Road Jack. Just because you got to build a card, right? You got to build towards jacks, but then you can't play the jacks. You got to discard the jacks. Well, if I'm building toward jacks, I probably want to just play the dang things. But I need the X-Mult. But I also need to play the 4 of a kind. It's a card that forces the piloter, the person piloting the run, to just be at odds with themselves most of the time. There's a few situational times where Hit the Road just happened to work in a run of mine, but it's never me working towards it. It's always, you know, a very crazy happening of coincidence. It's a C tier Joker. It's not very useful even on gold stakes, but it is some kind of X-Mult, right? So it's got to get some points. The duo, A tier, getting ×2 Molt for a pair is great. It's easier work than the club. The trio, B tier. We're not often playing 3 of a kind or 4 of a kind. But when we are, it can do something. And for that reason, the family's actually A tier above the trio, because if I'm not playing pairs, I'm probably just skipping 3 of a kind and going straight to 4 of a kind. And at that point, I'd rather just get the ×4 Molt. So I really think I use the family and trio about the same. And about the same is whenever I'm going for a 4 of a kind run. And in that circumstance, the family is just better because it gives ×4 Molt. The Order, one of the best X-Mult jokers in the game, up here in A tier, because if you're playing straights and you see the Order, you're good to go. You got any kind of flat Molt, you're scaling the Saturns, and then the Order comes along, it's really hard to lose a run. Really, the only way to lose a run at that point is you don't draw a straight, which it can happen. Moving on to the Tribe, I don't play flushes, and ×2 is not a lot for a flush. For me, this is C tier. Again, I think most X-Mult is borderline C tier. Like, that's the worst it can be, because it at least does something. But it is very rare that I get any use. You know what? No, I'm playing in D tier. I don't think I've used the Tribe like once in the past couple months, because I'm not playing flushes. Maybe if I'm playing a flush 5, but at that point, look at all the other X-Mult jokers, because Flush 5 contains basically all the requirements from any of these things that could help me over the Tribe, and it's only ×2. I mean, why is it? It's the same as playing a pair. It's weird, because I feel like 3 would be too much. Like, it shouldn't be on the same level as a straight, but I think it needs to be 2.5, and I don't think Local Thunk maybe wants to do decimals. I don't know. I don't know what to do with the Tribe, but it's not good. Stuntman, 250 chips. Yes, the -2 hand size hurts, but it's a spam meta. We're going to spam pairs and high cards. We don't care about the hand size. Give me the 250 chips, A tier, instantly. Next is Invisible Joker. Invis Joker for me is C tier on gold stakes. It's hard to hold on, and oftentimes you're not going to have a good target for it. But at the end of the day, it is going to copy a Joker in your Joker slots, and usually you have okay Jokers up there, right? You're utilizing them in the first place. Brainstorm, also S tier, not quite as good as Blueprint, but as close as you're going to get to as good as Blueprint. We'll leave it at that. Satellite, dollar earned per unique planet card that you've used. D tier, just because it's so hard to get use out of this. You really need to buy 4 unique planet cards to even have it equal a just a golden Joker. And it just feels like this huge extra step that makes it so I am rarely to never using it. Shoot the Moon, I do think is really good plus Molt. Reliable, gotta put in the B tier. Great early game Joker, and I've had a few runs that have won because of Shoot the Moon. I've carried it all the way through 8 antes, and it was my flat Molt the entire time. Driver's license, an interesting one because it has a very like specific requirement of having 16 enhanced cards, and it's kind of like either I do or I can easily get there or I cannot. But I still think it's A tier because it's often enough that you can get there, and times 3 is an absolute metric ton. Sorry if you heard me hit the microphone. Cardomancer, tarot card when the blind is selected. No, you're not as good as Hallucination. You're not that guy, pal, but you're still pretty good. We'll put you in the B tier. I still want a tarot card every round. I just would prefer if I got a chance of it every time I opened a pack. Astronomer, making all the planet cards free is actually really great on gold stakes where economy is hard to come by. I'm going to put it not quite A tier. I'm going to put it on the bottom of B tier next to Cardomancer. I think they have equal spots there. Burnt Joker, S tier for gold stakes. This is incredible because as soon as you get a Burnt Joker, go ahead and pivot yourself to pairs or high card. You're going to get that baby to like level 17. You're going to be all good. You're going to win your run. It is very overpowered being able to level up high card or pair every single round reliably. You're going to allow yourself to build the chips needed, and then you just need to find yourself some flat Molt and X-Mult, and the game is over. It eliminates the most difficult part in this game, which is finding a good chip Joker, because you're just going to level up that hand to have the chips that you want, and it's going to be a hand that you can play 4, 5, 6 times every single round. Bootstraps plus 2 Molt for every $5 you have. This runs into the same problem that the Bull kind of runs into, where it's really hard to manage the economy. You want to shop to get better Jokers, and for that reason, I'm going to put this down in the D category. We're on to the final Jokers, the legendaries. Kanyo is A tier for gold stakes. It's just got somewhat of a difficult requirement where I have to find a hung man. I have to find a trading card to get any use out of it. Tribulette is S tier without a doubt. Kings and Queens, it's basically game over if you get Tribulette. That's just how it goes. York, decently similar where it should be game over, although if you get it maybe in the final couple rounds of the match, it's only going to get to X2, especially since you only get 2 discards on gold stakes. How many times we got to say it? But most of the time, it's a clear times 2, times 3, times 4, or more. Chico, disabling the boss blinds, S tier. It's really hard to lose this game, even on gold stake, if the boss blinds are not there as a blocker. And finally, Perkeo, I think maybe the least useful out of all of them on gold stakes, but still useful because it's going to provide economy for the whole game, and it is A tier. And that's it. All right, let's take a look at everything here. Let's take a final rundown of the gold stakes tier list. We have the S tier headlined by things like Blueprint and Brainstorm, Mail and Rebate, Cavendish, and many more. A tier headlined by a lot of the X-Mult Jokers, a few utils here, but a lot of this is those X-Mult Jokers are just a little bit harder to play around. Things like Supernova and Ride the Bus that are fantastic scaling flat Molt Jokers, and then some great early game options and stuff like Ice Cream, Raised Fist, and Half Joker. B tier, kind of that worst tier of X-Mult, like the Trio or Acrobat, but still good enough. Some really interesting util in here. Moving down to C tier. this is a lot of the Jokers where I just don't know where to play. Like, they have use, but it's very specific situations, like Space Joker, and maybe you have Burglar or Oops All Sixes, and it becomes a lot more viable, or Hack, where it's not often I build towards lower cards instead of high cards, but if I got Hack, I would, and it has a lot of availability to it. So the C tier is kind of the land of I'm not positive where to put these, but they are decent Jokers. D tier is just not really good for gold stakes. And there's quite a bit down here, including the surprise maybe of Baron. And F tier. I don't use Seance. I hate Loyalty card. Pareidolia just doesn't have a place. Splash just doesn't have a place. And Hiker doesn't have a place, in my opinion, in gold stakes. And that's where I am. My opinion will probably change tomorrow. It's probably going to change in 1 month, and it will definitely change when the update comes out. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching another tier list. Hopefully this helps on your gold stakes adventures. And that's it. Comment down below what you disagreed with, what you agreed with. Hit the like if you like, hit subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and we'll see you for the next one very soon.